Sorry, guys. Okay, good. Got it. Live streamed. Okay. We're gonna get started. Though we aren't done. Redirection to YouTube. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, good. Got it. Live streamed. Okay. So, Amar Ravuna, La'adam Tov, Eimar Lo Chalom Tov. Now, this is really interesting, very fascinating. Yes. To a good person, we don't show a good dream. And to a bad person, we don't show a bad dream. We don't show a good dream. So a wicked person is not showing a bad dream, and a good person is not now. So according to Steinsaltz, rather, a good person is punished for his relatively few transgressions by aggravating with bad dreams, and a wicked person is rewarded for his few merits with good dreams. So in other words, good people get bad dreams to expiate their minor sins, and bad people get good dreams to pay them back for whatever little good they may have done. Now,
so wait a minute. I still don't understand it. L'adam tov ein marin lo chalom tov. Why
right?
Not?
Because we want him to suffer with bad dreams. So a good person who has minor averot needs to be punished in this world, so he can be rewarded in the next world. So Hashem gives him bad dreams, so he should suffer a little bit in this world for whatever little sins he did.
So what's a bad dream? What do you consider a bad dream?
A scary dream, a horrible dream.
Like a nightmare?
Yeah.
Most nightmares are grotesque. It's not real.
Right, but sometimes the Gemara is saying that since everything is by divine providence, sometimes we show a person has a bad dream, he has a nightmare, in order for him to feel bad, which should atone for his sins. In other words, if you're a good person and we discussed before, you have a bad dream, you shouldn't necessarily believe the dream, but if you're already aggravated, you should use the aggravation to look at yourself and say, what sins have I done? What things have I not done that need improving? Since you're already aggravated, you should say, what should I remember? Like, in the old days, a kid would be crying for nothing. Your father says, I'll give you something to cry about. So the same thing, you have a bad dream, you feel bad. Feel bad about something real. Since you're already feeling bad, look at yourself, because no one's perfect. There's always mitzvahs we're not doing. There's always sins we're doing. So the bad dream is an impetus, since you're feeling bad anyways, to look at yourself. Conversely, we sometimes give a really pleasant dream to a bad person as a reward for the few mitzvot he's done. So in the next world, he gets raked over the coals well. Okay.
So talking about a what do you call it? You look at yourself in what? In a
mirror.
In a mirror.
Yeah.
I think we should have not one mirror. We should have a series of a few mirrors. Every mirror shows you a little different.
Sometimes a dream is a mirror of what you're thinking during the day. Remember, this isn't the only
mirror on the wall.
You know what? This isn't the only Gemara about dreams. There are many Gemara and many midrashim about dreams. Dreams is a very discussed subject. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned this also in a brisa. The Kol Shenosav Shel David, all the years of David Hamelech, Lo Ra'a Chalom Tov. He never saw a good dream.
What do you mean we learn? Where do we learn it from?
This is a brayta. In other words, there exists brayta's material from the rabbis of the Mishnah.
How can somebody say Kol Shenosav Shel David Lo Ra'a Chalom Tov?
That's what it says.
Could it be like we talk about David HaMelech, and he says, I had a dream, this, and that.
Well,
maybe
so he was
maybe he presents it in the sense that instead of saying, I had an idea about this, and that.
Yeah, but this is not. But
I had a dream.
Why but Jerry, we're not talking here like Joseph, where he communicates the dreams to others. We're talking about dreams he kept to himself. David had bad dreams to atone for his sins, and Achitophel, his devious, evil advisor, had good dreams to reward him for the Torah he studied. Achitophel was a Torah scholar, but who otherwise is a very devious person. So Achitophel, who was a bad person, had good dreams to reward him for whatever he good into this world. David, who
was not the Jew.
He was the advisor who hung himself in the end. After he advised Avshalom to sleep with his father's concubines, he helped Avshalom in his rebellion. And Achitophel is the one who got Shalom back into David's good graces after he killed Amnon. Generally speaking, it is my position that to really understand the Talmud, you also have to know the Tanakh very well. And years ago, you studied the book of Shmuel here with your in the mornings.
I just had that experience Bamidbar when I was in Newton. I saw Midrash there and I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, it doesn't make sense. And I noticed that it said, look up Masachet Shabbat.
So you looked it up?
And so it happened, I have Shabbos, Steinsaltz, the original Steinsaltz.
Yeah.
And I looked it up, and sure enough, it agreed what I thought it should says. There was a pasuk then in the parsha, Kim Rivei HaKohanim, something like this. And in Steinsaltz tried to wash it down. He tried to put a positive spin. When I looked at it, Kim Rivei HaKohanim, it told me just what I thought. The Kohanim were known for arguing with each other, for having problems, serious problems.
It says in the Gemara.
Exactly.
So
doesn't
those listening to me online, what Joe is talking about, the Gemara says that Kohanim tend to have a short temper. And now if a Kohen divorces his wife, he can't remarry her because he can't marry a divorcee, right? So they used to have something called a get makushar, a tied get. Every line they would write, and then they would fold it over and sew it up, so as to give time for the Kohen to say, never mind. I'll try to reconcile. So the point is, Kohanim are known for having short tempers. It's well known that Kohanim have short tempers.
Part of the Kim Rivei Kohanim.
By the way, a lot of Kohanim I know are redheads, and they also have short tempers.
David HaMelech was a redhead.
It says Admoni. We don't know if it was a redhead. Admoni means ruddy, that his skin was very red. We don't know if he had red hair. That being said, Ashkenazic Jews on the whole have a pretty pure ancestry. So they found this well full of bones in England where they had massacred Jews during the Middle Ages and thrown them down. And they did a DNA analysis because they didn't know they were Jews till later. So otherwise they would have been buried right away. And the DNA analysis demonstrated that like a quarter of the people there had red hair and blue eyes, which is apparently a very Ashkenazi characteristic. Red hair and blue eyes arose in several populations independently, and Ashkenazic Jews are one of them.
So that means it had to come from some Goyim.
No, it's a mutation that arises on its own at times.
That's funny you should mention.
It's a mutation.
That, I remember as a young kid, my parents used to speak that way about people that had red,
That have a temper. Yeah.
But they talked in derogatory manner.
Yeah.
That redheaded people,
a lot of it is an urban legend, but that Kohanim have a short temper is brought down in the Talmud. It's a known thing. Tanya Nami Hachi. So David never saw a good dream. We gave him bad dreams because David did some sins that he had to atone for. And Achitophel did good things, a few good things, so he was rewarded with good dreams. And so there's an important lesson we learn from here that, that for example, Hashem gives us every year, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, God gives us, our sustenance for the coming year. But sustenance isn't just money, because one can have a lot of money. It says in Mishlei, one can have, in the book of Proverbs, Shlomo, one can have a lot of money and a lot of aggravation. Or you could have little money. What does it say in Mishlei? Better better a few vegetables and peace in the house than a big fat ox and fighting in the house. So there's a lot. So aggravation is a punishment. Psychological pain is a real thing.
Yeah.
So if someone has psychological pain from a bad dream, that counts as punishment to atone for one's sins. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to explain this idea, why aggravation atones for sins.
Aggravation like stress?
Yes, stress, unhappiness, whatever. In anything that makes you feel bad. In other words, it's called tshuva samishkal. The Ramban Nachmanides talks about it. The tshuva of the scale. In other words, if you did a sin, presumably you sinned because of the pleasure you got from it. If it's a positive commandment, the pleasure of laziness or not spending money on it. And if a negative commandment, the pleasure of doing the sin. So when that happens, when a person does tshuva, God will sometimes send the person something to aggravate them, to pain them. And if the person says, you know what, let this pain rectify, let it balance out the pleasure that I had from my sin, so my account is even with God. So that's the idea of the relationship of suffering and sin. That once a person repents, Hashem says, okay, I'm going to balance when you have equal, but the Gemara says that a person doesn't have to actually suffer. In other words, the Gemara says that if a person is looking in his pocket for a nickel and finds a dime, and he says, let this aggravation be atonement for my sins, it counts. And the same thing, instead of actual suffering, Hashem can send us a bad dream. It aggravates us and makes us look at our ways. And I say, may that aggravation be an atonement. Let it balance out the pleasure I had from sinning. That's the idea.
The idea here is how you look at everything, either positive or negative.
But even a negative experience can be viewed positively if you see it as a process of atonement.
Right.
Because we're held accountable for everything we do. And it's better to fix things in this world than in the next. Because as we discussed earlier, the next world, it's not so easy to fix things. Okay. So the Gemara now asks a question. There is another Brachot which says the opposite. Surprise, surprise. There's another Brachot that says the opposite. V'ksiv is it's not written in Tehillim 91. Lo suna Yosha B'Seita that we say every Mitzvah Shabbat. Lo suna lecha, no evil shall befall you. Rav Chistam, Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. What is the statement? No evil shall befall you, which is a general statement. So Rav Chisda said in the Rebbe of the Yirmiyah that he had a tradition that this verse means that bad dreams should not frighten you, and bad thoughts should not trouble you. Bad dreams are bad dreams, nightmares, and bad thoughts are sinful thoughts. In other words, you shouldn't be troubled. It says, and a disease, a sickness shall not come in your tent. So tent refers to the home, to one's marital life, right? The olecha, the tent, right? Sarah's in the oil. The oil is the intimate life, right? The Metzorah sits outside his oil, right? He's not supposed to be with his wife. So shalotimsa ishtach safik nida. So if you were away for a long time and you want to be reunited to your wife, you come home and your wife's a nida and you can't sleep with her. So that is trouble in your tent. So therefore,
well, there's no trouble. It happened to be her time.
Well, with suffix a doubt, typically speaking, these doubts, someone who's well versed in these Brachot, happen because a person has a episode not during the normal time. In other words, sometimes
that happens, I guess.
But that happens a lot. And the Gemara, actually, we should talk about this. Why does the Gemara mention this specifically?
Yeah.
So the answer is that the Gemara is not ignoring one of the most important parts of a marriage is the intimate relationship between husband and wife. and that is a holy thing and a good thing. And and we're told that that it's a great that the union of husband and wife is a great mitzvah, even when not a time when she could have a child. It's as long except during the time of nida, which is a very, very big prohibition. But the point is that and by the way, the mitzvah of nida and mikveh applies at all times. So even if a person is no longer having regular cycles, they go to mikveh once, and that sanctifies all future relationships. So we encourage even older people to go to mikveh. But at any rate, my point is that this is a holy thing and a lofty thing, and the Talmud is not shy about talking about these things because it's important that things work properly in the physical relation between husband and wife is a very necessary thing, and it has to be dealt with if it's not working and so on. So the Talmud says that where that relationship is disturbed, it's not a good thing. No disease, no trouble shall come into your tent, is referring to a disturbance of their intimate relationship. That's a curse, and it's a blessing when it works properly. That's what this Gemara means.
But what happens after a woman cannot have any more children? Is she still obligated to go to the mikvah?
Once you're no longer having menses, then she doesn't have to. That's my point. That a woman who's no longer having periods, but didn't go to mikvah as a younger woman, she goes to mikvah once, and then everything in the further is holy and good. But the point is, the larger point is that the harmony between husband and wife, this is a big element of it, is an important thing, and therefore it's a blessing when it works, and it's a nega when it doesn't work. That's the context. There's a much bigger context here than merely the question of someone being a nida at the moment the comes back from a long journey. So, by the way, I want to say that the Ben Ish Chai, the Ben Yehoda, written by the Ben Ish Chai, the great Sephardic genius of Baghdad, who died in 1908 with Yosef Chaim, the one who wrote the Sefer Ben Ish Chai that I quote sometimes.
Even bigger than the one that followed.
Who followed?
Sephardic, he was a genius in his
Who, Avaji Yosef?
Yeah.
Avaji Yosef was great. The Ben Ish Chai was even great. Anyways, so the Ben Ish Chai asks your question. He says it's a normal cycle. So the Ben Ish Chai gives my answer that we're talking about where she has an episode not at the normal time, which throws everything off, which makes him unable to be with her when he comes home. So that's the Ben Ish Chai asked your question.
First of all, he's coming. He doesn't even know. Does he know when could be a regular?
Right, no, but the Ben Ish Chai says the point is that this trouble here is happening. The trouble is that he comes home expecting her not to be based on her cycle, and she is. That's the issue. So therefore, we don't have an answer yet. At any rate, going back to the original statement, right, that if bad dreams are good for good people and good dreams are bad for bad people, so how do we say no bad person shall see? So answers the Gemara, even though he doesn't see bad dreams, others see bad dreams about him. So what does that mean?
First of all, this is not a very
One
special example, because people don't exchange dreams with other people.
Freudians do.
Freudians.
Okay, so in other words, if other people see about him bad dreams, in other words, others see bad dreams about him, and that's good for him. But if he sees bad dreams about himself, that's not good. Answers the Gemara, if he doesn't see dreams, is that good? Did Rabbi Zira say, whoever sleeps 7 days without a dream, it's called bad? Shenamar, as it says, was Savea Yol, he who goes to bed full by your pocket raw should not be visited with evil. Don't say Savea, but Sheva, that you should every 7 days at least you'll have a dream. What are we talking about here? That David saw dreams, but he didn't understand what he saw. So if you see a bad dream and understand it, that's bad. If you see a bad dream and it just disturbs you and aggravates you, like we said, that's good. Now, this business of not sleeping, not seeing a dream in 7 days is bad. There's a fascinating, very profound discourse where the Lubavitcher Rebbe discusses this Gemara, and we will share it, God willing, tomorrow. Have a very good day, everyone.
Good day, Rabbi.